Today we are with Akua Dixon. Akua is a cellist, composer, conductor, and native New Yorker. She has won numerous prestigious awards throughout her career, including several from the National Endowment for the Arts for both composition and performance. Recently, she received the Legacy Award through the Jazz Foundation of America and the Mellon Foundation. You can hear Akua's string arrangements and string quartet on the 5-time Grammy Award-winning album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and the Grammy-nominated album, A Rose is Still a Rose by Aretha Franklin. She's also worked with everyone from Duke Ellington, Dizzy Gillespie, and Ray Charles, to Tina Turner, Busta Rhymes, and Wyclef Jean. Akua has performed at the Kennedy Center, Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, and more, as well as jazz festivals and clubs around the world. She has also performed in the orchestra for numerous Broadway shows, including Dreamgirls, Barnum, Cats, and Doonesbury. And Akua previously served on the faculty at Bard Conservatory. I could go on, because that's very brief, but we would never get to the actual interview, so we're going to stop there. Welcome, Akua.
Thank you. Hi, Gia.
Hi. Nice to see you. Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Do you remember how old you were when you first picked up or played an instrument?
Okay. I grew up in a house where we had a piano. No one studied European classical music. They played the spirituals and their blues, and everybody could pick a song out on the keyboard. I learned by listening to what was going on in church, and really became quite good at playing by ear. I started playing cello in 4th grade at 9 years old.
And when did you start kind of playing around on the piano?
Probably about 7 or 8.
Okay.
Yes.
Why the cello?
Well, my elementary school had a wonderful music program, and that opportunity came up. I took it, I liked it, and by the time I was in junior high school, I was gigging, so
Wow.
I didn't think about doing anything else.
Did someone say to you, I think the cello would be good for you, or did you like the look of it, or the size, or the sound of it?
Well, I had an older sister, 2 years older than me, who played violin. So they gave me a violin, and I played for a couple of months, and someone donated some cellos to the school.
Okay.
They showed the instrument and videos of what it sounded like. I was always much taller and with bigger hands than my sister, and I saw it and I wanted to try it, and once I tried it, I loved it. So that was it, the sound of it.
Yeah. Do you remember how you felt when you first started playing it?
Well, it was great to be able to take music, period, in that kind of environment. I had a half a day of music and a half a day of academics when I was in elementary school.
Wow.
And then since I had a sister who played and other kids in the neighborhood that played, we could play together, even after school, because we lived in apartment buildings, so it just became a fun activity rather than a television or a computer or something like that.
So you said you were gigging by middle school. What did that look like?
Well, that was really interesting. We always would play string quartets on the weekend. We'd get together at one of the children's houses, a bunch of us, and take turns playing. And parents, being as they are, started getting us opportunities to play at their church, at the community center. People heard us, and it started with one church director wanting to know if we could play parts of the Messiah with them at Christmas, and they paid us, Then we got recommended to other churches, and
Did you have a name for the band?
no, nothing in particular.
No.
No.
Just
they
like a
didn't
group
do
of
all
kids?
the marketing like you guys do now,
So, as a child, who or what inspired you?
To play?
Yeah.
Well, I would have to say my older sister, She really played beautifully, And it was just fun to do. And all the other kids that I grew up with, being able to get together, a lot of them did become professional musicians or school teachers teaching music. Being able to get together with them and just play. Yeah. Music is so enjoyable,
Did your sister become a professional musician?
Yes, she was.
And with the violin?
With violin. She actually led a lot of things, because when we started, was before the civil rights movement was enacted. So the opportunities for African Americans and for women, were not possible. So she led the way, and both of us had most of our earlier career. We were in situations where either we were the only one or one of two African Americans on the job.
Wow. What was that like? Do you feel like you received the respect you deserved?
Well, no, but it's interesting because you wonder about that.
Right.
Why you're treated a certain way, and a lot of times it's because of the fear of the other person, not so much
right.
so that you don't get your respect. You have to respect yourself, and do what you know it is that you have to do.
When did you decide that you wanted to become a musician?
I never decided that. Like I said, I started working. And when you come from a family that's financially challenged and has a lot of kids, if you get a job at a young age and you're making money, you don't go looking for something else. By the time I was in high school, I was contracting string quartets and et cetera, and on so into college. I was doing arranging for different things, and I was working. So,
how many siblings do you have?
There were 6 of us.
And where are you in the order?
3rd.
Okay.
Yes.
Right smack in the middle.
Right smack in the middle.
Yeah. Did any of your other siblings become musicians?
Other than my sister Gail, who was directly above me, no.
No. Did they all play music as kids?
Somewhat. They all sang in the choir at church.
Okay.
So we got together musically at home and in church more so than in a school-based activity. It was always that kind of fun in the house because there was a piano there.
Right. Did you ever, prior to starting to work as a musician at 11 or 12, when you were younger, did you ever want to be a teacher or anything else, or was it never really a thought?
I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I was really composing and arranging little things even before I started cello at the piano. So it was an activity. I was always hearing sounds in my mind to work out. So a lot of my time was always spent on music even before I got into music. The nicest thing for me about being able to study music was to be able to learn how to notate what I'm hearing in my mind so other people can also appreciate it.
So, do you remember the very first thing you ever composed? I assume on piano, or maybe one of the early things you composed?
I remember several things like that, yes. One was a nursery rhyme kind of thing. We used to put on little plays for fun because there were 6 of us. We could go play baseball. We could do anything. You had enough people, So, and if cousins came over, they would join in. We'd give them a part to do, and we were very creative like that.
So it was a long nursery rhyme?
No. We did other things that were traditional that all the other kids did, but there are verses that maybe my sister would have written new words to old music, or I came up with new music to old words. So,
was it any good?
Well, I will say it's memorable because there's one that I wrote that involved my youngest sister's name, and she still remembers it.
Oh, wow. Wow. Approximately how old were you, or what was the first piece you composed that you were really proud of?
Well, I was excited when in junior high school we played at the Lobster Box, which was a restaurant at the end of Coney Island, City Island. And we played a reception there, and someone who was getting married heard us, and hired us as a string quartet, talked to our parents who were there, and asked could we do an arrangement of One Hand, One Heart, And I really hadn't done anything for anybody on a professional level, but that gave me an opportunity just to do something very simple. And I did it, and the accomplishment of achieving it was just wonderful.
How old were you?
13, something like that, yes. Wow. But on a professional level, I just finished a piece called We the People. And I had a commission from City Music Cleveland and the Harlem Chamber Players to compose this piece. And it's for a classical string quartet, which means that everything has to be notated, you know.
Right.
And it was a big challenge and a lot of work, very unusual writing, even from me, because of the topic. You know, We the People is a very strong,
Yeah.
not a song and dance,
Right.
mood. So,
And that's recent?
yes, I just had the first performance of it in February.
Did you get to go?
Oh, yes. Yes.
What did you think?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it, you know.
Tell me a little bit about your music education. So we got elementary school, and half a day of music is incredible.
Yes, it was.
And then you went to college, and did you study music in college?
Well, before then, let me just go. I went to the High School of Performing Arts.
Ah, okay.
Which is a major, major influence on my ability to do a lot of the things that I've been able to do. They had an excellent theory department, as well as curriculum. It was a school that was based on performance. You had to actually perform in front of your colleagues, your peers, your other students, and that's harder than performing for an audience when you're performing for high school students.
that you know.
Yes, you were assigned an accompanist, and since the level of musicality was so wonderful for auditioning for that school, the accompanist that you got, were playing really college level repertoire. Okay, so the theory department was on that level. I was making money because theory was my good subject, and I was doing homework for friends who were in college 2 grades ahead of me, doing their homework for them, getting paid a little bit as Gail's kid sister, you know. It's like having somebody do your math homework, you know.
Yeah.
So it was...
And were you composing when you were in high school as well?
Little things, but I really didn't have time. I was studying, you know. College level, I went on to Manhattan School of Music. I was still freelancing. I had to earn a living while I went to school.
Yeah.
And we were assigned in theory class to write, say, a sonata or a piece in a certain kind of form. So I had to do a lot of writing then, you know. But freelancing after that gave me the opportunity to meet other string players who were interested in... We had time to kill in between shows.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I was about 18, we were working at the Apollo Theater. So it's summertime, working for James Brown. You're doing 4 shows a day. You have these long breaks in between. So the only room they had for us to chill in, you know, because we didn't want to be down in the band room with the guys, with the older cats, was way up in the top, you know, like 4 flights, whatever that was, up to the attic. But we were kids. We didn't care. We walked up there, and we could be up there and just play chamber music. So I started scribbling out things, and different ones of us who wrote at that time would, and everybody would try playing each other's music. And it started as a foundation there, too.
So when you finished college, were you able to find work right away?
I didn't stop working. I really left school because I was working too much.
Ah, okay. Nice, that's nice.
I was working.
What's your first adult, really memorable gig or performance?
Well, there's so many and so many different styles of music,
Or a few.
you know. But
name a few.
I will say that when I was about 18, and I think James Brown had "Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud," and he wanted a string quartet, and he was at the Apollo. So myself and my sister, Sylvia Medford, and I think Maxine Roach might have been the string quartet that got to work there that summer. And that's the first time I ever did a professional job where I had to get my union card.
Oh.
You know, so it was someplace around 1970.
And did you all audition individually, or did you audition as a group?
You don't audition for those kind of jobs.
They call
you get recommended.
Oh, wow.
Yes, you go by recommendation.
Wow.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yes.
That must have been a real honor.
Yes, but you know, musicians always recommend different people, and I had been doing other gigs, so my name comes up, and that's how it, word of mouth.
When you were around that age, how many female cellists that could play at your level really existed?
Um, well, not too many in New York that I can think of, but there were a few. Um, if I'm not thinking specifically about nationality, I was in school with Maxine Newman. I've known her since she was 12, and she became quite well known as a freelancing cellist in New York City. So
a couple.
there were other women, yes. Yeah.
And is she white?
Yes, she
so
was.
Was it easier for her?
Well, there were doors that were open,
Right.
And opportunities that she had, but there were opportunities that I had that she didn't have. So,
It worked.
yes.
How do you feel you've evolved as a musician over the years?
Well, cello, I've been able to play in so many different kinds of ensembles. Okay, I can be in an orchestra. I can play in a string quartet. All kinds of duo situations. I can function as a solo instrument, or in the string quartet, I can function as a bass. So it's a very flexible instrument to have worked with in so many different environments. And I think that my music also, because I've been able to do all kinds of jobs from a classical orchestra to a jazz band, my music has a lot of reflection of all worlds in it. And I'm at the age now that I don't have to do any more of that.
Right.
And I can just concentrate on what I would like to do pretty much from my own perspective.
So, do you have a favorite or preferred genre?
Well, I would say not one specifically. I have several. I like things that are mentally stimulating, but not overly so.
Yeah.
I like clarity in music, and I'm working at now, instead of working on other people's music, working on my own,
Right.
cataloging all of the pieces that I've written, getting back into them, make sure that they're notated correctly, documenting them. And since I'm working with the Jazz Foundation of America and the Mellon Foundation now, that gives me an opportunity to look forward. You get to an age that you start thinking about all that you've done.
Right.
And in my case, I've really done a lot with all the people that I've worked with. But now I can take a chance to do my work. So as I came up as a cellist in orchestras, in ensembles, the last number of years, I've been working more in a soloist capacity, developing my jazz quartet, which is cello with guitar, bass, and drums. Or with the string quartet, I added a bass so that I'm not just the bass player. I can also be more of a lead instrument.
I'm gonna ask, just based on what you were just saying, do you have musicians that you prefer to work with over others? And have you ever worked with your kids?
I do have musicians that I love to play with, and I definitely work with my kids. I play with my son. He has more time at this point in his life. I won't say he always will. And I guess also since he lives a little bit away and I go to visit him, he takes that time. I see Andromeda almost every day because we're in the same household and juggling schedules.
Yes. I guess we should clarify. Your daughter is a singer.
Yes.
And your son is a drummer.
Yes. And she has an almost 6-year-old.
Right.
So
who's adorable.
And active. So
yes.
all of that we have to take place with. But I love working with both of them, and I love what both of them are doing musically, and it's different from what I do,
Are there any specific challenges that you've faced over either a period of time or throughout your career that have impacted you, and whether it's changed the direction of where you've gone or made you tougher, I'm not going to let this get me, I'm going to beat it type thing?
Yes. Well, there's been plenty of that. In a lot of ways, like I said, I was in a space where I was amongst some of the first women to open those doors. So the challenge in thinking about what I had to go through in that kind of an all male environment, how I made it work for me, so I could deal with it. And say in one case, I always come to the job dressed and ready to go. I don't go into the band room where people are changing or anything like that. I stay upstairs, go do my job, and I leave. You make certain ground rules for yourself that you learn over the years so that you can work in those kind of environments, So, and each one has its challenge, As a woman, there's been different challenges in addition to that, in that if you're the band leader and the rest of the band, especially, is male, a lot of times you get to the venue and they just assume that one of the men is the leader of the band, and they won't even deal with you in that regard.
Still?
That has happened, and even dealing with women who are used to always hiring men. They think they're supposed to deal with the men more so than deal with you as a woman, so it's not always the easiest.
How do you take charge when they're not expecting you to be the one to do it?
I would say that I always take charge.
Do you have a whistle?
A whip.
A whistle.
I'm very clear in negotiating and talking with people most of the time.
Yeah.
What I need to do.
I listed some of your achievements,
Wow.
but again, like I said before, it was a very long list. What do you consider as some of your greatest achievements?
Wow. Well, some of the most difficult things, one of the most difficult things was writing the music and conducting the ballet for Judith Jameson's Riverside Ballet and premiering at City Center. The music was written by Kimati Denizulu. Okay. Kimati Denizulu was an African drummer, percussionist, and he had a full ensemble. And they performed all the music. She edited it how she needed it to fit her ballet. And when it came time to actually present the work, they had to play it, but they were just playing in the studio, different fields and stuff. How do you notate that so that they can follow the dancers? And they also don't read music. So
how long did that take you?
Well, you have deadlines. You don't have all day when you have that kind of thing. I'm sure it's like they called me in September and opening night was in December.
Wow.
So yeah, you don't have a lot of time. So I managed to work it out, and it did work. And I was sad.
Right.
It was over,
Sleep
but,
after.
Yes, but it was an experience that I would say that you asked before about things that other people got that I said, oh, I didn't get. But this is one of those things that I got that helped me musically because of my music that I personally write rhythmically. I had to figure out how to notate it in a way that has served me well in other instances,
Who among the, I want to say maybe hundreds of artists that you performed with were the most inspiring and or memorable to you?
Boy, it's hard to pick one, and I've talked about several that I've worked with, but there's something that you can get big and small from working with a lot of people, and either from them on a personal level or from watching them go through challenges, And when I speak of some of the challenges that women go through, and especially black women, it's working in the field, okay? I remember a concert with Betty Carter and another one with Linda Hopkins, when everyone else, this was during the sound check, so a lot of people standing around, and they're on the stage trying to deal with getting whatever they need together. And um, it's not easy, you know. And knowing those women also off stage and watching them go on stage and handle it, you know. And I mean handle it in a way that was nice and diplomatic and achieved what they needed
Right.
to get, you know, was an inspiration.
Did you carry that with you?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I still think about that because there's times when I could easily just, you know,
Yeah,
but
right.
it's not going to achieve anything,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And watch how they handle it, you know. In Linda Hopkins' case, I'm thinking of a time where they matched her with a pianist who really just didn't know what she was doing, but it was her pianist got sick,
Okay.
so she was on tour. So this was one night that she had to have covered, and she just did her thing, and it was so amazing and fantastic that it didn't matter.
There you go. Just ignore the pianist.
Yes,
Who
yeah.
needs the pianist? Were there any collaborations that either you were not sure about and then they came out amazing, or just were very excited about and have really stuck with you?
Okay. I can think of one in each category. The Lauryn Hill one was one that it wasn't expected, you know. I was living in Montclair raising my kids, and I got a phone call at dinner time and feeding them, and introducing me to her. She was working on music for Miss Education, and someone had heard my string quartet on the radio
Oh.
and decided that was
Uh-huh.
we could get jiggy with it. Okay, so they were calling me in reference to working with her. As it turned out, I knew her uncle, so it was him I was talking to, and they wanted me to come over right then. I said, well, as soon as I finished feeding the kids, I would go. But I had mentioned her name during the course of conversation. So Andromeda, let's see, that was, what, 1998? I don't even know how old she was, but very young.
And, well, high school.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
But she was so funny. She couldn't wait for me to get off the phone. There's only one Lauren. You know, says, you're not going over there unless we all go. I said, but it's late at night, you have school. But we had a van. So, and she had a little brother, and he fell asleep in the car.
Aw.
So the two of them I left in the van. I had my cell phone, and I went in the house. Lauren was pregnant, you know. And having the opportunity to work on that was very different for me. Like I said, I've worked in all styles of
Yeah.
music. And when I worked at like the Apollo, and during that particular era, I got to play background strings with so many different bands that were absolutely fantastic. You had Burt Bacharach, who wrote for Dionne Warwick. You had the Chicago sound. You had the Philadelphia sound. You know, you had the Temptations, the Detroit sound, and the string writing was amazing. You know, so I've had a lot of experience listening to what has happened in that style of music and
Yeah.
playing it over the decades. So it was nice to get an opportunity to do a record, you know, where I could use that.
Yeah.
You know.
What about awards? I mean, one of the things, you've won multiple National Endowments for the Arts awards. What does that mean? How many awards or grants have you won with them?
Well, I've won two nice ones with the National Endowment. It goes back a ways in my career. Not because I haven't won, I haven't applied in quite some time. I've been busy doing other things. But I won one for performance and one for composition, and that's when I notated a suite. This was 1980 something, 1981 approximately. Africa for solo cello and string orchestra, and it included improvisation for the cello.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about your most recent award, this Legacy Award. What does that mean? And what do you know, what comes with that?
Well, it's, you know something, it's an honor to be chosen. I couldn't apply for it. And to feel that the music that I've been working on, creating my entire life, has value that I need to archive, you know. So this really gives me me personally, an opportunity, first of all, to go back and to go forward, in that I can use some of its tailored services to help my career, and part of it is to archive and document what I've done, and the other is to also do something moving forward. So.
And tell me a little bit about teaching at Bard. What was
Okay.
that like? Why did you choose to do it? What did you learn?
Okay. I moved up to Rhinebeck. And I actually moved up there because my kids were grown and in college. And I had been writing an opera in my spare time.
Oh,
with,
as one does.
Yes, with Aisha Rockman, who was an amazing playwright. And I needed to finish it. The times had changed from the handwriting score of the first half of it, and now we're into computer writing. So I had to take all of that and put it into the computer, plus finish the second half.
Right.
So I moved up there to do that, and I met some of the John Esposito, who's the head of the jazz department at Bard, and he was working on building a jazz department there, and asked me to teach jazz cello. So I did. I had not too many students while I was there. Mainly I was up there to finish writing,
Right.
which is a big job. And it gave me something else to do while I lived up there. It's kind of far for me to go, now.
Yeah.
So, and my schedule has changed. So I haven't been teaching, but I've had several wonderful students. The nice thing about Bard is that some of the students have a flexible schedule, so they can take classical music, they can take electives, they can elect to even go out of the country and study abroad with an Arabic cellist, say.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of opportunities there for them.
What did you learn as a teacher?
Well, it was, over the course of my career, I've done teaching, some individual lessons and some group things. I worked for Carnegie Hall Education for a lot of years, and that was a lot of kids because I went to a lot of different schools. When I travel and I give concerts, I sometimes wind up giving a private lesson in that town where I'm at. This gave me an opportunity to have a student for the entire semester.
Right.
And I've had private students. I had a young lady come from Spain that lived here for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And took lessons from me each week like that. So it was good to. It was good for them and good for me.
Right.
There's not that much training for cello in jazz. A violin, yes. Cello, no. It's a different keyboard, fingerboard. So not too many people have moved over there. There's not that much opportunity to work. If you're trying to gig, if I had played bass, I probably would have had a different kind of lifestyle
Right.
working and more jobs. But instead, as a cellist, I did string quartet. So
Right.
it still worked for me.
Yeah. When you think back to your amazing career, what do you wish you had known earlier? I'm sure you've been asked this before.
Wow, what do I wish I had known? That's a hard question. Because learning is a process.
Right.
And there's some things that even if I told you, you're not going to do it until it happens to you.
Right.
But I would say that thinking about things too that, say, someone like Maya Angelou has said, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
That is one of my favorite quotes.
Yes.
Justin just looked up. I say it all the time.
Because if you've had someone that has worked with someone else and hasn't treated that person right, and you think that they're going to treat you any better, forget it. It doesn't work like that. You build your reputation not only externally but internally. People get to know your reputation. Is she there or he there always on time? Are they always dressed for the job? Are they polite, well-spoken, come in, do their job, and just don't cause any hassles,
Yeah. Any advice that you would offer to others? And it can be specifically for cellists, or it could be just, musicians in general.
Well, if I think about artists, especially in general, because a lot of them are not, they're very creative, and they're not in a field where they're able to get pensions, health care, and stuff like this. And it's difficult to find a way to balance having a life that you can do that and be able to still have time to be creative and plan a future for yourself.
Right.
I see a lot of kids today, and it's fun to be out there and just taking jobs. And the business is not one set up for music that it's really a good thing, and we're working on that in a lot of ways to help youngsters, know more about some of the things they should look out for.
Right.
And especially in this industry, there's a lot.
Yeah.
I should write a book. I get into conversation with a lot of my children's friends when I'm with them. They're asking me questions about that, and how do you make sure that you're going to get paid on a job, and what do you do with this? And over the years, you do develop a way, but I'm glad that they're interested in a few tips, because it really does make a difference. And I was glad that someone gave me some tips, When my first job that was at the Apollo, I met Winston Collymore, who was an older violinist, and his daughter was also a young violinist working there, and he schooled both of us in what to watch out for to get your money, so to get paid for the job.
Which is what?
Just if as string players, a lot of times the band is so loud that you don't hear the strings, So if you're being a decoration, make sure you get your money up front. If you're really, they need you and you're playing, that's a different thing. If it's a union job, make sure you take care of following your contracts and all of that, and make sure that you can get paid like that. If it's possible to make it a union job and worthwhile, do that.
Yeah. I once heard someone talking about being a successful artist, and that one of the keys to successful artists are they're good business people. And it doesn't seem to go together.
Yes.
But it has to.
It has
right?
to.
I mean, you have to make a living.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And you have to, you do have to learn a lot about that. I have to say that I was very fortunate in that since I was freelancing and doing cash jobs, cash record dates in my high school years. But when I got into the college market, and started working some places, like say the Apollo, that was a union job. So I started learning how to be on a contract and what the benefits of it was, how to file my own contracts, and what the scales were and what the union scales are. Not to say that a church has the same kind of funds as a Broadway theater,
right?
Okay, but to at least see the difference in scales and what is going on, so you have something to base it on.
Right,
So I came up through learning how to do that and file those kind of contracts, and it was very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I always wish that journalism school had a business course.
Yes.
I think it should be required for any artist.
Yes.
Of any kind. You need it. You need it.
Well, I feel that instead of geometry, we could use a class in writing our taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Who or what inspires you today?
Wow. Well, the direction of music at this particular point for me, in a lot of cases, has become very repetitious and annoying, So a lot of it, I'm talking about the commercial music, I've kind of turned off. I find that society likes the similar kind of things, and it keeps coming up, and I appreciate that. But as someone who's working in that environment, too much of hearing the same thing over and over after a while, as your job becomes difficult. So it's been nice to kind of clear my head, and at this point, I've been listening to different things. Some things from the past. I recently listened to revisited McCoy Tyner's Asante record, which was really exceptional, and listened to some things by, say, Leroy Jenkins, who's a jazz violinist, which is also something else. Expanding my ears at the keyboard, at the piano, reading books that I've had that some of them I've been able to explore in theory and stuff like that. And a lot that I've had that I haven't had time to read. So getting to do some of those things has really expanded what I'm doing. I got my cello fixed and some getting new strings and stuff like that. So I'm getting ready to kind of shed and see what happens.
Yeah. What are you passionate about today?
I have to say education, and especially music education. You know, I feel that when I consider the opportunities that were given me in public school,
Right.
in the 50s and 60s, and what's going on today is just like night and day. You know, during the time that I was in college and I was teaching in after-school programs, what was offered to students in the New York City public school system was also on a much higher level than schools that I get to see in most of the places that I go.
I think around here we're lucky.
Yes, but the music programs, still the ones I've seen, don't come any place near it.
I mean, it's better than what I had as a kid. I
Yes.
had very little.
Yes, yes.
I mean, the fact that
yes.
third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, they're required, and even through eighth grade, really, you know, at
Yes.
some level,
Yes.
they have to take music.
You know, and when I think about it, because I said that my elementary school had such a wonderful program, and a lot of people became professionals. Some went into teaching music, and there's others that went into being a doctor, lawyer, whatever,
Right.
and still enjoyed playing. And wherever they moved to in their communities, joined local orchestras and stuff like that. So they still enjoy music, you know. Whereas what's taught in the schools today doesn't really give kids an appreciation
Right.
of it to keep it like that in their life. I know people that I went to school with in elementary school who, even though they didn't continue playing, they didn't let go of their instrument, they still have it.
Right. So, were all the schools in your neighborhood offering a half day of music and half day of...
No, not all of them. This particular school fed into the local high school, which was right across the street, and they had a good music program from what I understand. I didn't go there, I went to
Right.
performing arts. But the head of the music department there, his specialty was strings, and I think the head of ours was, he played brass, and there was a piano teacher and a woodwind person. So they somehow collaborated
Yeah.
and expected students to go from there into the high school. So you expected to be able to take music all the way through. There were borough-wide orchestras, so you played even in
Wow.
junior high school, after school on Saturdays.
Do you think that kids these days would benefit from more
yes.
music and less, you know, foundational reading, science, math?
Well, I don't know if they need less, you know. From what I'm seeing of a lot of what they're getting in schools as I travel, they're getting other things than what we got, you know. People don't have to write and do penmanship, and
Right.
so things have changed. But music is something that when you study the notation of it and learn how to read it as a subject, it helps you have a very creative idea of vocabulary and mathematics, you know. So I think it's a good subject to take for everybody.
Right.
It's a foundation in exploring that realm. You know.
We talked a little bit about getting this legacy award. So I'm curious as to what you hope your legacy will be.
Oh, okay. I feel that in my case, as I said, I was always hearing things and writing. So, as a string player, you don't, at the time I was in college, you don't get to study any other style of music but European classical music. That was it, you know. And getting to do a concert, the one that I did with Duke Ellington especially, made me realize that I had spent a lot of time learning the music of another culture, and I hadn't spent a lot of time, as much time learning the music of my own, you know. And even though I knew my spirituals, because I grew up in church, I freelanced playing in all different styles of African American churches, so I knew the literature from a lot of that repertoire. I knew a lot of the popular music because that was required of me at the Apollo and doing concerts like that. In jazz, they always wrote out parts for the strings, and I always felt that the string players didn't get the phrasing. You know, they got the notes, you know. And I just decided to try to figure out a way to get all of that together for myself, you know. And at this point, I feel like I figured out how to ask for it with the qualities and study that classical players have in their knowledge, how to get that feel from them, you know, by my knowledge of notation.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a nice legacy to leave. This question is my absolute favorite. What is your dream?
Wow, what is my dream? Boy, what is my dream? Boy, you know, you could have so many. You know.
And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be music related. It could be personal. It could be whatever. World peace.
Yes, I would love to have world peace.
So would I.
And I would love to have everybody on the planet be able to have fresh water and something to eat, and an education. You know, I feel that just because you have money doesn't mean that you have the brains and the time to achieve something specific. There are people who are born who are dirt poor, but who have been given a gift and have the knowledge to do something, and who are held back from being able to do that because of money, you know. Not educational opportunities. Educating the mind should be something that is a priority all over the world, because it ultimately will help everyone, you know.
Anything I didn't ask?
You asked a lot. I hope I was clear on some of it. I feel like I was wondering.
I thought you were very clear. Anything else I missed? Any points you want to make?
No, it was nice talking with you and thinking about all of these things. And the Legacy Award has just really begun, you know. So I'm just getting into the mode of it. They asked me also, what is it that you'd like to accomplish with it? You know, what are your dreams? And I've always had dreams of, and a lot of them in some ways I've accomplished, you know, and gone on to a different dream during my life. But do you have to let go of that dream to move to the next one? Can I bring all those dreams back together?
Sure,
It would be lovely.
Yeah.
You know.
You're lucky too, I feel, to be able to see a dream all the way through and then move on. Not a lot of people get that.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to be here and be able to pull things back together again. I feel that strings in my style of music haven't had the opportunity to generate and to grow. So I would love to finish mixing and stirring that pot.
I can't wait to see it. Hear it, not see it. All right, thank you.